Hello everyone and welcome to part 1 of Photoshop Basics. This is a training that's going to be taking place in Photoshop CS6. My name is Amanda B and I'm going to be providing this training. Now these are just the very basics for those that are not accustomed to using Photoshop. I'm going to go through a lot of the basic uses of Photoshop so you can feel more confident about the work that you're doing and that you can feel a lot better about starting some of your projects and being able to finish them. Now, if you've used Photoshop before, some of these are going to be very basic tutorials, so feel free to skim through them if there's a particular part of Photoshop that you're looking to learn. Otherwise, I'm going to try to go into this in a way that is going to make the most sense to those that are just now learning Photoshop, and to try and make this the easiest possible. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got some images here. Now feel free if you'd like to do some research online, find some images. One of the things that I always tell those that come and ask me for Photoshop advice is to find a project that you'd like to do and then start working to complete the project. Believe it or not, when I first started on Photoshop, I just wanted to color pictures that I was drawing. And it took a little while to get accustomed to Photoshop. It's a large program, there's a lot of features to it, but it's not as hard as it looks. A lot of it looks a little more complicated than it actually is. So, you know, if you're starting out just coloring a picture or you wanting to fix up some old family photos, this is pretty much the perfect starting tutorial for you. So for the lesson today, I'm just going to make a cupcake flyer. Just to kind of give you a basics on how to use it. So for this first lesson, we're just going to go ahead and open a new canvas. So if you go to File, New, and you click on New, you're going to get this little options menu that comes up. Now, I just want to go into a brief overview on some of these so you understand the selections we're making. Name is pretty much going to be whatever you want to name the file. Now, you don't have to name it something if you don't have a name in mind right now. That's completely fine. I'm going to name it My First Project Cupcake, if I can type it here. You're welcome to name it anything you like. Pretty much you want to name it something that'll make it easy for you to find later. Now, if you look under preset where it says default Photoshop size, these are actually some sizes that you can use if you have a pretty much a certain specification in mind. For instance, if you click on US paper, it's going to automatically set it to 8.5 by 11 and 300 resolution to start off with. If you were to choose a regular photo, it's going to start from 3.2 and so on and so forth. Now, depending on if you actually use something here, see, I use US paper, it's going to give you size options. So you have letter, which is the regular paper size, legal, or tabloid. And these will help you to really start on any projects. Say, for instance, if you don't know exactly what size you want to start with or you don't know the dimensions of the project you're going to be starting on, you can easily start here. Or you can do what I usually do. I usually just leave it on custom and I just select a random thing. If I'm making a picture and I don't know what size it's going to be, a lot of times I may set it to 5 to 5 or 10 to 10 and I just resize it as I go. So for the project that we're going to do, we want to make a horizontal flyer that's going to be easy to print to regular US paper size. So we're going to do the width as 11 inches and we're going to do the height as 8.5. Now if you look over here, there are other options that you can choose. A lot of this is going to depend on what's the most familiar sizing unit to you. I usually dance between inches and pixels, but I know some other Photoshoppers that use centimeters, points, picas. You know, again, it's just whatever is the most comfortable. For this tutorial session, we're going to be using inches. I may dance into pixels later, but most of the time I've used pixels if I'm going to be making an icon size or something that it requires a pixel size that's not actually going to be a full inch. So for now, we're just going to leave it as inches. Resolution, just to go into a brief overview, if you're having trouble understanding what the resolution is pretty much going to be the pixel count or the pixel size. Now, the higher the resolution, the more detailed the image is going to be, the crisper and the cleaner the quality. But let me just give you a quick warning here. If you go too high, depending on the computer you're working at, it may be too large an image for your computer to handle. For instance, 600 DPI or 600 resolution would be really large, and a basic computer usually can't handle it as well. Likewise, if you go too low, and I'm not sure if you've noticed this or not, but a lot of images you find on the internet usually start off at 72 dpi. If you try to edit those, you'll find that the pixel count is really low and they come out kind of grainy and choppy, and they just don't come out as crisp and clean. I usually like to start at 300. I find 300 to be a nice middle ground between high quality and low quality, and it makes the files small enough that I can send them without too many troubles, trying to send them through email, and it also makes them clear enough that they print off very nicely. So we're going to start at 300 dpi for now. Also, there are other options you can use. I usually use pixels by inch, but I know certain individuals that would use it pixels by centimeter, and that's most comfortable for them. Okay, so going down here, color mode, we're not going to work with this too much. A lot of people usually use this if they know the kind of printer they're going to be printing to, and this is usually kind of like a graphic designer or an artist thing, or even, anybody who uses Photoshop professionally. They would pick these depending on what they want to use. For now, we're just going to stick to RGB color, and we're going to leave it at 8-bit so that the computer has an easier time handling it. And we're going to leave the background as white. Now the beauty of this is you can pretty much, this is just to make your first canvas. And when I say canvas, it's similar to when you're a painter and you start off with that white canvas and you're going to be putting something on it. That's pretty much what we're going to be making. So if you're going to choose a background, you can actually choose to have a white background or background color if you prefer to start with an actual color. And if you click on this, it's going to give you, actually it's not here. Nah. It'll give you an option to use a background color when you go to hit OK. We're not going to do that right now. We're just going to stick with white. But just know that that option is there. Also, transparent will open it up without any color on any of the layers. So this is really great if you want to make a logo or you want to make a PNG image that's not going to have any background. So for now, we're going to leave that on white. I'm not going to dance into any of the advanced things yet. It is not necessary at this point in time to go over those. We're just going to keep it simple. So here's the beginning of our project. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And there we go. There's the beginning of our project. Now, I want to show you just real quick. Here in the Layers palette, you see that it's opened up a new background. You see this little lock image? Photoshop, whenever it opens a brand new image, and I mean a brand new canvas, it tries to protect that bottom layer. It's expecting that you're not going to use it. Getting rid of this little lock to get rid of this white is actually very easy. You just double click. It's going to give you the option to name it. You can name it or not, depends on you. And you've got some little options here you can choose depending on whatever you want. I don't recommend changing any of these unless you want to do something specific. But we're just going to go ahead and actually, for the sake of this, I'm going to say background. And we're going to say OK. Now if you notice, it changed the name of this. It was originally named background, but it took the name that I gave it. And now it's editable. Now when I say editable, and let me go back here so you can just see. Oh, it's not going to let me go back. No. Okay, let me delete this and let me make a new one real quick. I'm not going to save that. Make a new. It still keeps the setting from last time. Okay, now if I were to try to do any deletes on this, just to show you what happens. If I were to try to delete, it's not going to let me do much to it. See how it's doing this black? It's not allowing me to get to that transparent layer behind it. It doesn't want to let me do that. So I'm going to undo. Also, undoing anything that you do in here, just a quick reference, you can either do undo eraser or you can do Control Z. And the Control Z works for both, well, actually, you know what, I'm going to say Control, I'm using a Mac, so it's going to be Control Command Z that allows you to do those. And it's actually not even allowing me to do it right now. I don't know why. Okay, so for the moment we're just going to do step backward because my keyboard's decided it doesn't want to let me show everybody how to use quick shortcuts. On the regular keyboard you would use Control Z, and that's for both a Windows keyboard and a Mac keyboard. On a Mac keyboard you would use Control Command Z, I think. Yeah, it's not letting me do it right now. I'll show you later. So that's how you can undo. Some people find it easier to just go up here and undo. I usually prefer to use the keyboard shortcuts. It makes things just so much easier. And the keyboard shortcut I'm talking about is actually the same one you can use if you're using other programs such as Microsoft Word or Excel or Paint even allows you to use the Control Z. So if we double click this, and I'm going to name it, you know what, I'll name it background 1 so you can see the difference in the title. If we rename it, and we take that eraser and we try to erase. Now you're going to see this little square pattern behind it. Photoshop uses the square pattern to show you that there is nothing there. This is literally its way of saying, you know what, you have nothing under this. So let me go back. Oh, okay. It's actually on the Mac keyboard. It's actually Option Command Z. Keys, and I don't have a Windows keyboard nearby. You can look in on the Windows one, and you can see it for Windows one. Under Edit, it'll show you what the keyboard shortcut is right here, and you'll be able to see for Windows keyboard if that's what you're using. At the moment, I'm going to be saying shortcuts for the Mac, but they translate over pretty easily to Windows. It's about the same keys, it's just they're called stuff differently on these keyboards. So we've got this new white canvas, and if we want to start a new layer, let me move this. Actually, you're not going to see it. It's my recording software, but you're not going to see this little guy here. He's kind of invisible. And actually, you know what? I'm going to bring him down here. That'll make it easier. If you come over here, and let's say you want to start a new layer, you would actually click on this button to begin a new layer. Now notice it automatically starts it on top of whatever you're working on. This is so that you don't really mess with your main layer, your background layer, and they're expecting that you're going to be putting stuff on top. Now the beauty of it is, let's say you want that underneath the layer. Well, you can just grab it, drag it. You know, no harm done. For now, we're just going to leave that on top. Another interesting thing I want to note to you, if we did not have this, if we got rid of layer 1 and you tried to delete this, it's not going to let you. Why? You started a new project, and Adobe needs to have something in that project. So even if you were to delete all of the white here, it's not going to let you get rid of that layer because it needs a base to start from. You know, you can't really paint without a canvas. So, but now if you add a layer and you want to delete it, Photoshop lets you. Why? Because you've still got a base layer. It pretty much tells you that this is going to be your new base layer. So let me go back and let me bring that back. In working with layers, just a few things I want to point out to you really quickly. There are these little tools up here that are very useful for what you're doing. I find locking a layer to be very useful when you're working in Photoshop. A lot of times you may be doing edits on a layer and you may accidentally click on the wrong layer, and before you know it, you've painted up on a layer you didn't want to paint on, and now you can't go back and you can't change anything. Well, by locking it, if you notice here, it does not allow me to do anything to it. It has this little no symbol. So if I were to try to paint, it's not going to let me. And if I click on it, it's going to say could not use the brush tool because the layer is locked. So it prevents you from editing it. You can still move the layer around if you want to. You also can't delete it while it's in that condition. So it's really good a way to protect your layers. If you've done something, you like it, you don't want it to go away. So I'm going to unlock that. Also, some other things on here. These are different ways to lock them. I don't usually use them, believe it or not. I like this one the most. Feel free to play with these. See if there's any real differences. Yeah, I guess that just, I think this one right here just locks it so it prevents you from being able to move the file around. Yeah, it doesn't want you to move the file around. This one I think locks it to prevent you from actually painting on it. But you can probably move it around now. Yeah, it's not giving me any edits to be able to do that. And this guy here, I think, is going to lock it and prevent you from being able to get rid of the transparency or whatever. I'm not entirely sure about this one. But anyway, I usually use this one, and this works out pretty well. I like blocking all attempts on the layer when I'm done and I'm happy with it. So, without further ado, I'll go into some of the uses of these other things here in some of the later tutorials. I'm not going to dance too much into them right now. I don't want to overload the tutorial and make things really difficult. So there's a lot of tools here. We're going to go through these very slowly. As we work on projects, you'll learn what some of these are doing. I don't want to go and explain them all. It's going to take way too long, and chances are you're probably not going to remember a lot of these because there's a lot of little details about each one of these tools. But just know for the moment that this is how you make a new canvas, and that in order to be able to control what goes on your canvas, you have these layers that you can edit. Okay, so before I go into actually putting anything on this canvas, I want to show you how to save what you've got going and how to come back to it. So for the moment, I'm actually just going to draw on this little layer. I'm just going to make a little heart, just something basic so I can show you. And I'm going to say, and you're going to see here there's two options here that you'll primarily use, and that's save and save as. There's also close. Believe it or not, I don't usually go to the file close version of it because they offer you a little X here to be able to close this particular layer, and it's going to give me a warning because I haven't saved it. I'm going to hit cancel. And you've also got the option to close it here. Obviously on Windows you're going to have a little X up here somewhere that'll allow you to close it as well. But in the Mac we've got this little red circle that'll allow you to close it. The difference between these two is probably going to be very simple, but I'm going to explain it real quick for those individuals that may not be very familiar with some programs. Save is only going to save it if you have a new edit. So, for instance, I save it right now, and it's going to give me the option, because I don't have it saved already, it's going to give me the option to be able to save it. So I'm actually going to go into my, my training folder here, and I'm going to name it My First Project. And I'm going to save it. Now down here, you're going to see formats. A lot of these I'm not going to go into because a lot of them are probably not going to be important to the tasks that you do, but I'm going to point out a few of them. First off, Photoshop is going to be the file that you want to save anything you work on as, because this is the main file that Photoshop uses. This is going to save all of the edits, all of your layers, everything that you're working on. It's pretty much going to save it somewhere on the desktop, and that's how you're going to be able to use it. JPEG is probably the most common format for pictures. It allows you to save it in a real nice crisp manner. The high count of pixels is really good, and you can send it, it compresses the picture a lot, and you can send it to people via email and or post it online and that kind of thing. So this is probably going to be the most common one you use. Another one that I use a lot is PNG. This is the file that you can save it as if you want to remove a background. So a lot of times if I'm making a logo or if I'm making text that I want to pop up on a video or something, but I don't want a background to go with it, you would use PNG and you would remove the background. So for right now, we're just going to save it as a Photoshop, just be able to use it. Oh, one more that I wanted to point out real quick before I leave. They also allow you to save to a PDF. So those of you that like working with PDFs and prefer PDF as your sending format, it also has PDF available. So we're going to save it as Photoshop. We're not going to mess with any of these. We don't need to. Everything's working out pretty good. And we're going to save. And this is just to let you know that it's going to try to save it at the maximum compatibility and that, just to try to make it the easiest to work with. So I'm going to say OK. Okay, now when I go back into File, you're going to notice that Save is no longer an option. The reason being is that it knows it's got the most recent version of the Photoshop file that you're using. Now if I were to go in here and I were to say create another little heart or whatever, and I go back in, you're going to see that the save option is available because it noticed you made a change and now it's going to let you save. So then you can save it, and again it's not available. Now Save As is really useful if you're working on a variety of different images. Oh, it's still saving. I'll give it a moment. Okay, let me click on that again. Save As. This is going to allow you to change the name of the project or make duplicates of the project if you're doing a variety of different things. A lot of times when I'm working on postcards or flyers for clients, I will make a variety of different images, and it'll be the same image, but I'll change the canvas size for, say, flyer, poster, postcard format, and all the pictures are already there. I just have to change the canvas size, adjust them. No sense in trying to keep them all in the same file. I just make new Photoshop files for each one, and then I can just go in and edit every single one, and it makes it so much easier. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't need to save it again. And I'm actually going to delete layer 1 because I don't want to keep those hearts. And that's going to conclude part 1 of the Photoshop training. In part 2, we're actually going to look at being able to move objects over to our canvas and begin learning how to move them around, resize and transform them, and allow you to really see how layers work and how a lot of the tools in here work for image size and image quality. So thanks for watching. If you have anything Photoshop related that you would like to see on this channel, anything that you would like to learn, please post a comment under the description, and I'll see if I can put together a tutorial for you so we can go further into this. So thanks for watching. Amanda B out.